Hey there, welcome back. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a concept that might sound a little intimidating at first, abstractions. But trust me, it's more relevant to your everyday life and business than you might think. Our guide for this deep dive is a talk by Asanka Abeysinghe, CTO of WSO2 from the APIDays.HK 2023 conference.
He really dives into how understanding abstractions, especially in the context of business, can lead to creating better digital experiences and ultimately give you an edge in the market.
I love that idea, a secret weapon hidden in plain sight. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's break it down. What exactly are abstractions? It feels like one of those words that gets thrown around, but not everyone really understands.
You're absolutely right. It can be a bit slippery. Think about it this way. We use abstractions all the time to simplify complex things. A map, for instance, is an abstraction.
Okay, I can see that. A map takes a whole mess of streets and landmarks and turns it into something I can actually use to get around.
Exactly. It hides all the unnecessary details, like the precise GPS coordinates of every turn, and just gives you the essential information you need. That's the core idea behind abstraction, encapsulation. It's about hiding complexity behind a simplified interface.
So it's kind of like having a user-friendly remote control for your life, right?
Right.
Instead of dealing with all the complicated buttons and settings, you just press play and enjoy the show.
I like that analogy. Another great example is a transistor radio. You have those simple knobs to tune in a station and adjust the volume, but underneath there's a whole world of complex circuitry with transistors, capacitors, and all sorts of other components.
You're right. I have no idea how that stuff works. But I can still enjoy listening to music. So abstraction is about hiding that inner complexity so we can interact with things more easily.
Exactly. And this is crucial in the world of software engineering. In fact, you could argue that software engineering is built almost entirely on abstractions. Think about it. Programmers are always working with code that represents something else.
Now that you mention it, it makes sense. When I'm using an app, I'm not seeing lines of code. I'm seeing buttons, menus, images. All those visual elements are abstractions of the underlying code.
Precisely. And over the years, some brilliant minds have come up with powerful abstractions that have revolutionized software development. Take Barbara Liskov, for example. She invented abstract data types like stacks and queues.
I'm not a programmer, so those sound a bit technical. Can you explain how they make a difference?
Sure. Imagine you're a developer building an app where users can undo their actions. Instead of having to write the code for that undo function from scratch every time, you can use a pre-built stack data type. It's like having a ready-made tool in your toolbox. It saves time and effort and ensures consistency across different programs.
It's like using prefabricated building blocks. Instead of having to carve every piece of wood yourself, I'm starting to see how these seemingly technical things can have a big impact on the efficiency of building software. Were there other big breakthroughs like that?
Absolutely. Think about databases, which are used in pretty much every website and app you use before relational databases. Storing and retrieving data was a nightmare. Then Edgar Cod came along and revolutionized everything.
I think I've heard of databases,
Yeah.
but how did he change things?
He created a way to organize data into tables with rows and columns, kind of like a giant spreadsheet, and developed a standardized language called SQL to access and manipulate that data. It's like going from a jumbled filing cabinet to a perfectly organized library, where you can easily find any information you need.
Wow, that's a huge leap forward. It sounds like finding the right abstractions can make things exponentially easier and more efficient. But where does business come into all of this?
That's where things get really interesting. Abeysinghe argues that understanding and leveraging abstractions isn't just for techies, it's a vital skill for anyone in business, especially in today's digital world where customer experience is everything.
Okay, I'm intrigued. But how does knowing about stacks and queues and databases help me create a better customer experience? I don't see customers clamoring to know what kind of database a company uses.
It's not about the specific technical details, it's about the underlying principles. Abstractions help us break down complex problems, identify patterns, and come up with new ways to innovate.
So, instead of getting lost in the weeds, abstractions help us see the forest for the trees. But isn't every business trying to innovate and create a good experience? How do abstractions give you a real edge?
Let's think about the experience economy. Today, businesses compete not just on price or features, but on the entire experience they offer. Think about that $5 cup of coffee we all love. You're paying for the atmosphere, the service, the convenience. It's all part of the package.
That's so true. I'm way more likely to go back to a coffee shop if the experience is great, even if the coffee itself is just decent.
Exactly. And Abeysinghe argues that to create these winning experiences, you need to understand how to leverage abstractions at a business level. He proposes a framework he calls the triple layer of business abstractions. That's where the real competitive advantage lies.
Okay, now we're talking. Tell me more about these layers. What's the first one?
The first layer is called deployment abstractions. This is your IT infrastructure, the nuts and bolts of your systems. Think cloud platforms, automation tools, the things that let you build and run your software.
So, it's the essential foundation, but not necessarily the part that makes your business unique.
Right. These tools are becoming more and more common. Everyone's using them. They're necessary, but they don't give you a distinctive edge on their own. It's like having a reliable car. It gets you where you need to go, but it doesn't automatically win you any races.
That makes sense. So what's the next layer up, where the real differentiation happens?
That's the layer of business abstractions. This is where you define the unique services functions, APIs and data flows, that power your specific business. It's where you translate your company's core strengths and value proposition into software.
So it's about taking what makes your business special and turning it into a digital reality.
Precisely. It's about figuring out how to break down your business processes into modular components that you can easily combine and reuse. This is where the third layer, domain abstractions, comes in.
Domain abstractions. It sounds like we're getting a bit more abstract here. Can you give me a concrete example of what that means?
Sure. Think of it like organizing your business into different departments or areas of expertise. Each domain has its own set of business abstractions that work together to achieve specific goals. Let's say you're a retailer with online and physical stores. You might have a customer domain, a product domain, and an order fulfillment domain. Each of those has its own unique processes and data flows, but they all need to work together seamlessly.
Okay. Starting to see the picture. So you're essentially creating a modular structure for your business, kind of like building with Lego blocks, where each piece can be snapped together in different ways to create new products and services.
That's a great way to visualize it. And this is where APIs come in. They act as the glue that connects all these layers of abstraction.
APIs. Those are the things that let different software systems talk to each other, right? Like when I use my Facebook account to log into a shopping app.
Exactly. They're like the universal language of the software world. In the context of business abstractions, APIs let you expose your unique capabilities to customers' partners and even other internal systems.
It sounds like we're moving towards a world where businesses are like giant sets of interconnected APIs, all working together to create these seamless experiences.
That's a great way to think about it. And to manage this complexity, a lot of companies are turning to something called an internal developer platform.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's an internal developer platform? Does that have something to do with all those domain abstractions?
You got it. Think of it as a centralized hub. That gives developers all the tools and resources they need to build and deploy those business abstractions. It streamlines workflows, encourages reusability, and helps make sure everything is consistent across the organization.
It's a one-stop shop for all things development. It sounds incredibly helpful, but also pretty complex to set up.
You're right. Building one from scratch can be a huge undertaking. And with technology constantly changing, it's a moving target. That's why Abeysinghe suggests looking at existing solutions that experts already built and maintain.
That makes sense. It's like trying to build your own car from scratch versus buying one that's already road tested and ready to go.
Exactly. And Abeysinghe actually mentions WSO2's own products and their internal developer platform called Choreo as examples of existing solutions.
Well, he's the CTO of WSO2, so I guess that's not surprising.
Yeah.
But beyond specific products, what's the key takeaway here? What's the advice he gives to businesses who want to put all these ideas into practice?
He really emphasizes focusing on those business abstractions. Don't get lost in the technical details of setting up the infrastructure. Spend your time figuring out what makes your business special and translate that into software.
It's about playing to your strengths, not getting bogged down in building the basics from scratch.
Right. And he's a huge advocate for an API-first approach. That means thinking about how you can expose your business capabilities as APIs from the very beginning of the design process. It's not an afterthought. It's built into the DNA of your systems.
So APIs aren't just a way to connect different systems. They're a core part of your business strategy.
Absolutely. An API-first approach helps you create a business where different parts can easily connect and work together. It's like building with those Lego blocks, but now the blocks can communicate and share information.
This is all incredibly insightful. We've covered so much ground, from the basic idea of abstractions to how they can be applied at a strategic business level. It's amazing how something so seemingly abstract can have such tangible, practical implications.
You're right, we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore in this world of abstractions and their impact on the future of business.
And I'm sure our listener is eager to hear more about what WSO2 is doing in this space and what specific advice Abeysinghe has for companies looking to implement these ideas. But we are just about out of time for this segment of our deep dives. Let's continue this fascinating conversation in our next segment.
Picking up where we left off, I'm really interested in digging deeper into what WSO2 is doing in this space. We were talking about their internal developer platform called Choreo. What makes it stand out? Is it truly aligned with what Abeysinghe was advocating for in his talk?
That's a great question. It's easy to talk the talk, but does WSO2 actually walk the walk? From what I understand, Choreo is designed to make it easier for developers to build and deploy those crucial business abstractions without having to wrestle with a lot of complicated infrastructure.
That aligns perfectly with what Abeysinghe was saying, about focusing on your strengths and not reinventing the wheel. Choreo brings together API management integration and microservices development, all within this environment that leverages Kubernetes.
Okay, you said Kubernetes, and I know we touched on it earlier, but I'm still a bit fuzzy on what that actually means. Can you remind me why that matters? Especially for someone who's not a developer.
You bet. Kubernetes has become the industry standard for managing complex applications built with containers. Think of it like an air traffic controller for your software. It ensures all the different parts of your system are running smoothly and talking to each other properly.
So for developers using Choreo, Kubernetes takes care of all the messy deployment and scaling details behind the scenes.
Exactly. This frees up developers to focus on what really matters, building those unique business abstractions that give a company its competitive edge. Instead of getting bogged down in the plumbing, they can concentrate on designing and building beautiful functional rooms.
I love that analogy. It makes the whole thing much clearer. So it sounds like Abeysinghe is really pushing for a shift in mindset instead of trying to build everything from scratch. Businesses should be looking for ways to leverage existing platforms and tools to speed up innovation.
You hit the nail on the head. He sees the future of business as one where companies collaborate and build upon existing foundations to deliver amazing digital experiences. It's about recognizing that you don't have to be a master architect to build a fantastic house. Sometimes it's smarter to work with a skilled contractor who can help you bring your vision to life.
That makes a lot of sense, especially in today's fast-paced tech world. Companies can't afford to waste time and resources trying to do everything themselves. It's like trying to build a smartphone from scratch. By the time you're finished, the technology will be obsolete.
Exactly. So if we pull all of this together, it seems like Abeysinghe's message is this. Understand the power of abstractions. Identify your core business differentiators, and then build those out as modular API-driven components. Then you use platforms like Choreo to assemble those components into a seamless and delightful digital experience.
You nailed it. It's almost like a recipe for success in the digital age. But I'm curious, he also talked about the experience economy evolving into a value economy. What did he mean by that? Is it just a fancier way of saying give customers what they want?
That's a great question. It's about moving beyond simply providing a good experience and focusing on delivering tangible value to your customers. It's not enough to just be fun and engaging. You need to show how your product or service genuinely improves their lives or helps them achieve their goals.
So it's less about fleeting moments of delight and more about delivering measurable outcomes.
Precisely. It's like the difference between a flashy marketing campaign that generates buzz but no real results, and a product that truly solves a customer's problem and makes their life easier.
That makes a lot of sense. But how can businesses actually make this shift towards a value economy? It sounds like a big challenge.
It is a challenge, but one that's becoming increasingly important. And I think the key lies in the growing sophistication of data analytics and artificial intelligence. Businesses are now able to gather incredible amounts of data about their customers, and AI can help them make sense of it all.
So instead of relying on broad demographics or gut feelings, businesses can use data to understand their customers' needs on a much deeper, more individual level.
Exactly. This allows for truly personalized experiences that go beyond just recommending products based on your browsing history. It's about anticipating needs, providing proactive support, and ultimately building stronger, more valuable relationships with your customers.
It sounds incredibly powerful, but also a little bit intimidating. It seems like businesses will need a whole new set of skills to succeed in this value economy. Where do you even start?
It all begins with a shift in mindset. Companies need to become more data-driven in their decision-making. And that requires investing in data literacy across the organization. It's no longer just the responsibility of the data science team. Everyone needs to be able to understand and work with data.
That's a big change, but it sounds essential. You can't build a data-driven culture if only a handful of people in your company speak the language of data.
Exactly. And along with data literacy comes the need to embrace new technologies. AI and machine learning are rapidly evolving, and businesses need to stay ahead of the curve if they want to leverage these tools effectively.
It sounds like the businesses that are willing to make these investments in data technology and people will be the ones who truly thrive in the years to come. It's a new way of thinking about business, but one that feels incredibly relevant to the world we live in.
I completely agree. It's an exciting time to be in business. Even if it feels a bit daunting at times, the possibilities are endless, and the companies that embrace this new paradigm will be the ones who shape the future.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I've gone from being completely lost in the woods of abstraction to having a clear map and compass to navigate this new landscape. And you know what? I bet our listeners feeling the same way.
I hope so. It's a topic that can feel a bit overwhelming at first, but once you grasp the core concepts, it opens up a whole new way of thinking about business technology and even the world around us.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to Abeysinghe's talk for a moment at the end. He briefly mentioned how abstractions are evolving and hinted at something called generative abstractions. What do you think he meant by that?
That's a fascinating question, and one that's on the cutting edge of what's happening in technology right now. We've talked about how traditional abstractions simplify complex systems by hiding details. But generative abstractions take it a step further. They don't just hide complexity, they actually generate new possibilities.
Okay, my brain is officially doing backflips. Can you give me a real-world example? My mind's drawing a blank.
Think about AI-powered design tools. Instead of manually creating a design from scratch, you give the AI some basic parameters, like your brand colors and target audience, and it generates a whole range of design options for you to choose from.
Whoa, that's mind-blowing. So the abstraction isn't just simplifying something that already exists, it's actually creating something entirely new.
Exactly. And this has huge implications for businesses. Imagine being able to generate marketing campaigns, product prototypes, or even entire business models using AI-powered generative abstractions. It's like having a team of brilliant creatives at your fingertips, all powered by algorithms.
It sounds almost too good to be true. But if this is where things are headed, it's both incredibly exciting and a little bit scary. I mean, are we going to be replaced by robots?
That's a question a lot of people are asking, and it's one that we could probably dedicate an entire deep dive to. But I don't think it's about being replaced, it's about augmentation. These generative abstractions are tools that can help us do our jobs better and more efficiently, freeing us up to focus on the things that require human creativity and ingenuity.
So instead of fearing their robots, we should be figuring out how to work with them to unlock even greater possibilities.
Exactly. It's about embracing the power of technology to enhance our capabilities and create a future where humans and machines collaborate to solve complex problems and build a better world.
Now that is a thought-provoking place to leave our listeners. But before we send them off to contemplate the future of humanity and AI, what final piece of advice would you give them based on what we've discussed today?
I think the most important takeaway is to start thinking about how you can apply the principles of abstraction to your own work and life. Don't be afraid to challenge the status quo, to break down complex tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks, and to look for ways to automate the mundane so you can focus on the things that truly matter.
It's about working smarter, not harder, and using the tools at our disposal to amplify our creativity and impact. This has been such a rewarding conversation. I feel like I've learned so much, not just about business and technology, but about how to think more strategically and creatively in every aspect of my life.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you and with our listeners. And remember, the world of abstractions is constantly evolving, so stay curious and keep exploring.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this segment of our deep dive into abstractions. Stay tuned for part 3. It really feels like we've gone through a mental workout together, flexing those abstraction muscles. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to something Abeysinghe said about how businesses can actually put this into practice. He talked about the importance of an API-first approach. It sounds pretty technical. Could you break it down for us non-coders?
Absolutely. It's easier to understand than you might think. Imagine you're building a house. An API-first approach would be like designing the house. With the electrical wiring and plumbing in mind from the very beginning, you're not just tacking it on as an afterthought.
So you're thinking about how everything connects and communicates right from the start. That makes sense. But how does that translate to building a business?
Think of each API as a doorway to a specific capability or piece of data within your company. With an API-first approach, you're essentially building your business with these doorways in mind, making it easy to connect different systems and share information seamlessly.
So it's kind of like a modular design, where you can easily swap out components or add new ones without having to rewire the whole house. It creates flexibility and adaptability, right?
Precisely. And this is crucial in today's fast-paced business environment. It allows you to respond to changing customer needs, integrate new technologies, and even collaborate with other businesses more easily.
This has been an incredible journey through the world of abstractions. We've covered so much ground, from the basic definition to how they're shaping the future of business. Any final thoughts for our listener before we sign off?
I would simply encourage our listener to revisit Abeysinghe's talk and explore the links to his blog and social media provided in the show notes. He dives even deeper into many of the concepts we've discussed today and offers practical guidance for those looking to apply these ideas.
Great advice. So to sum up our deep dive, we've learned that abstractions aren't just some abstract concept. They're a fundamental part of how we think, build, and do business. And as technology continues to evolve, our ability to understand and leverage abstractions will become even more crucial.
Absolutely. It's about moving beyond traditional silos and hierarchies to create businesses that are more modular, interconnected, and adaptable. And ultimately, it's about creating better experiences for customers and for ourselves.
I love that idea. We started by asking what unique business abstraction our listener could create. Now I'm wondering, what part of your work or life could you simplify, streamline, or even revolutionize by applying the principles of abstraction? It might feel like a big question, but the answer could unlock a whole new world of possibilities.
That's a great challenge for our listeners to ponder.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.